Marcus Williams stepped off the school bus on his first day at Lincoln High School, clutching his worn backpack straps tightly. The September sun cast long shadows across the concrete courtyard, where groups of students gathered in their familiar circles. At 16, Marcus had already moved 3 times in the past 2 years due to his father's military assignments. Each new school brought the same challenges, but this time felt different somehow. The building loomed larger than his previous schools, with over 2,000 students filling its halls. Marcus took a deep breath and walked toward the main entrance, noticing how conversations seemed to pause as he passed. Whispers followed in his wake, though he couldn't make out the words. His clothes were clean but clearly secondhand, and his sneakers had seen better days. The contrast between his appearance and the designer brands worn by many students was immediately apparent. Inside the main hallway, Marcus consulted his schedule and tried to navigate the maze of lockers and doorways. The first period was American, history with Mrs. Patterson. He arrived 5 minutes early, hoping to find a seat without drawing too much attention. The classroom was already half full, with students chatting about their summer vacations and weekend plans. "You must be our new student," Mrs. Patterson said warmly as Marcus entered. "Class, we have someone joining us today. Would you like to introduce yourself?" Marcus felt dozens of eyes turn toward him. Heat crept up his neck as he cleared his throat. "I'm Marcus Williams. My family just moved here from Fort Campbell, Kentucky." A few students exchanged glances and someone in the back row snickered. Marcus quickly found an empty desk near the window and tried to focus on taking notes as Mrs. Patterson began her lesson on the Civil War. During the discussion, he raised his hand to answer a question about military strategy, drawing surprised looks from his classmates when he provided a detailed and accurate response. At lunch, Marcus sat alone at a table near the cafeteria windows, eating the sandwich his mother had packed. The noise level was overwhelming, with hundreds of conversations happening simultaneously. He watched the social dynamics play out around him, noting which groups sat where and how they interacted. The athletes dominated the center tables while various other cliques occupied their designated territories. "Hey, new kid," called a voice from behind him. Marcus turned to see 3 boys approaching, led by someone who was clearly used to being in charge. The leader was tall and athletic, wearing a varsity jacket with multiple patches. "I'm Derek Morrison, captain of the basketball team. Heard you're from some Army base." Marcus nodded cautiously. "That's right. Must be tough moving around all the time, never really belonging anywhere." Derek's tone was friendly enough, but there was something calculating in his eyes. "Where'd you get those shoes? The thrift store?" A few other students had started listening to the conversation. Marcus felt his face flush but kept his voice steady. "They work fine for me." Derek laughed, not unkindly but loud enough for others to hear. "Well, at least you're honest about it. Most people try to pretend there's something they're not." He walked away with his friends, leaving Marcus to finish his lunch in uncomfortable silence. The afternoon brought chemistry class, where Marcus found himself paired with a quiet girl named Sarah Chen for lab work. She seemed genuinely nice, asking him questions about his previous schools and sharing stories about Lincoln High's traditions. As they worked on their experiment, Marcus demonstrated a clear understanding of the scientific concepts, impressing both Sarah and their teacher, Mr. Rodriguez. "You've had some good chemistry teachers," Mr. Rodriguez commented as he reviewed their work. "This is excellent analysis for a first-day assignment." Walking to his final class of the day, Marcus overheard a group of students talking about him. The conversation wasn't entirely negative, but it was clear he was being sized up and categorized. Some seemed curious about the new student who could answer difficult questions in history and excelled at chemistry. Others appeared to have already dismissed him based on his appearance and obvious financial situation. Physical education was his last period, and Marcus had been both dreading and anticipating it. Sports had always been his strength, but he knew it was also where social hierarchies were most clearly established. The locker room was filled with the usual banter as students changed into their gym clothes. Marcus noticed that even the athletic wear here seemed more expensive than what he was used to. Coach Thompson gathered the class on the gymnasium floor, and announced they would be playing basketball for the unit. Teams were chosen by student captains, and Marcus found himself picked last, which wasn't surprising given that no one knew his abilities. He was placed on a team that seemed to consist of the less athletic students, while Derek Morrison's team was stacked with obvious talent. As the game began, Marcus hung back initially, observing his teammates' playing styles and the overall flow of the game. His team fell behind quickly, with Derek's squad displaying impressive coordination and skill. The few spectators in the bleachers were clearly enjoying the mismatch, some making comments about how the new kids' team didn't stand a chance. When Marcus finally touched the ball, he surprised everyone by making a smooth steal and converting it into a fast break layup. The gymnasium fell momentarily quiet before erupting in surprised chatter. Derek looked intrigued rather than annoyed, recognizing genuine skill when he saw it. For the remainder of the game, Marcus played with increasing confidence, demonstrating court vision and basketball IQ that caught everyone's attention. His team still lost, but the margin was much closer than anyone had expected. As students headed to the locker room, several approached Marcus with newfound respect. "Not bad for a first day," Derek said, extending his hand for a shake. "You've got some moves. Where'd you learn to play like that?" Marcus accepted the handshake, gratefully. Base leagues back in Kentucky. Competition was pretty tough. Walking home after school, Marcus reflected on his first day. It had been a mixture of typical new student awkwardness and unexpected moments of recognition. He could tell that his academic performance had surprised some teachers and students, while his basketball skills had definitely made an impression in gym class. The challenges were obvious. His family's financial situation made him an easy target for those who judged people by their possessions. The constant moving had made him somewhat guarded, unsure of how much to reveal about himself or how quickly to form friendships. Yet there had been positive moments too, small signs that he might find his place at Lincoln High if he remained patient and true to himself. As Marcus reached his family's modest apartment, he knew tomorrow would bring new tests and opportunities to prove himself beyond first impressions. 2 weeks into his time at Lincoln High, Marcus had settled into a routine that felt both familiar and foreign. The academic work came naturally to him, and his teachers had begun to recognize his potential. However, the social landscape remained challenging to navigate. He had made a few acquaintances, but no real friends, and certain groups of students seemed determined to keep him in the role they had assigned him from day one. The morning started differently when Marcus discovered a note stuffed into his locker. Written in messy handwriting, it read, "Nice shoes charity case. Try not to embarrass the school too much." He crumpled the paper and threw it away, but the words stung more than he wanted to admit. These small acts of cruelty had become a regular occurrence, subtle enough to avoid teacher notice but persistent enough to wear him down. In English class, Mrs. Rodriguez assigned students to present book reports on American literature. When Marcus volunteered to discuss The Grapes of Wrath, several students exchanged knowing looks. The assumption seemed to be that he had chosen the book about poor migrant workers because he could relate to their struggles. What they didn't know was that Marcus had read extensively throughout his childhood, finding books to be constant companions during his family's frequent moves. Standing before the class, Marcus began his presentation with confidence. He discussed Steinbeck's themes with insight that surprised his audience, drawing connections between the novel's historical context and contemporary social issues. He spoke about the dignity of working people and the importance of family bonds in times of hardship. His analysis was sophisticated and thoughtful, revealing a depth of understanding that went far beyond his classmates' expectations. "Excellent work, Marcus," Mrs. Rodriguez said as he finished. "Your interpretation of the symbolic elements was particularly insightful. Has anyone else made connections between this novel and other works we've studied?" The silence that followed was telling. Several students who had been quick to judge Marcus based on his appearance now seemed to be reconsidering their assumptions. Sarah Chen, his lab partner from chemistry, smiled encouragingly from her seat in the second row. During lunch, Marcus noticed that Derek Morrison was holding court at his usual table, surrounded by teammates and other popular students. The conversation seemed animated with frequent glances in Marcus's direction. He couldn't hear what was being said, but the body language suggested they were discussing him. Whether the topic was positive or negative remained unclear. "Mind if I sit here?" The voice belonged to James Peterson, a quiet student from Marcus's history class who was known for his academic achievements rather than his social status. Marcus nodded gratefully, relieved to have some company during what had become the loneliest part of his day. "That was a good presentation this morning," James said, unwrapping his sandwich. "You really know your literature. Most people just summarize the plot and call it analysis." Marcus appreciated the compliment. "Books have always been important to me. My mom says I was reading chapter books by the time I was 7. James smiled. "Same here. It's nice to meet someone else who actually enjoys learning. Most people here seem to think academic success is something to be embarrassed about, unless you're planning to use it to get into an Ivy League school and make a lot of money." Their conversation continued throughout lunch, covering topics from favorite authors to college plans. Marcus discovered that James was also dealing with social challenges, though for different reasons. As the son of a single mother who worked 2 jobs to support them, James understood something about financial struggles, even if his situation wasn't as obvious as Marcus's. The afternoon brought a surprise when Coach Thompson approached Marcus after physical education class. The basketball unit was continuing, and Marcus's skills had become increasingly apparent with each game. Despite being placed on weaker teams, he consistently elevated his teammates' performance and made games more competitive than they should have been. "Williams, I'd like to talk to you about trying out for the varsity team," Coach Thompson said. "I know the season's already started, but we could use someone with your court sense and work ethic. Think you might be interested?" Marcus felt a surge of excitement followed immediately by doubt. "I'd love to try out, Coach, but I'm not sure I have the right equipment or if my family can afford the fees." Coach Thompson waved dismissively. "Don't worry about any of that right now. Let's see what you can do first, then we'll figure out the details. Practice starts at 6 tomorrow morning. Can you be here?" Walking home that afternoon, Marcus felt a mixture of hope and anxiety. The possibility of making the basketball team represented everything he had dreamed of since arriving at Lincoln High. It would give him a chance to prove himself in a way that transcended social and economic divisions. On the basketball court, performance was all that mattered. However, he also understood the risks involved. If he failed to make the team, it would confirm what some students already believed about him. If he succeeded, he would be entering Derek Morrison's territory, potentially creating new conflicts and challenges. The team was Derek's domain, and Marcus wasn't sure how the established star would react to serious competition. That evening, Marcus shared the news with his parents over dinner. His father, Sergeant First Class Robert Williams, had just returned from a 3-month deployment and was still adjusting to being home. His mother, Linda, worked as a nurse at the local hospital and was usually exhausted by dinner time. Despite their own challenges, both parents encouraged Marcus to pursue the opportunity. "You've got talent, son," his father said. "Don't let anyone convince you that you don't belong somewhere because of what you wear or where you live. On that court, they'll have to respect what you can do." His mother nodded in agreement. "We'll figure out the financial part if you make the team. Your education and happiness are worth any sacrifice we have to make." Before bed, Marcus spent time practicing his ball handling skills in the small courtyard behind their apartment building. A single streetlight provided enough illumination for him to work on his dribbling and shooting form. As he practiced, he thought about the presentation that morning and the conversations with James and Coach Thompson. For the first time since arriving at Lincoln High, Marcus felt like he might have multiple paths to finding his place in the school community. His academic abilities were beginning to gain recognition. He had made at least one genuine friend, and now he had a chance to compete for a spot on the basketball team. The challenges remained significant. The social hierarchies at Lincoln High were well established, and changing people's perceptions would take time and consistent effort. Some students seemed committed to keeping him in the role of the poor kid from the military base, regardless of what he accomplished. As Marcus prepared for bed, he thought about tomorrow's early morning practice. This would be his first real Test on the basketball court, playing against the school's best players rather than in casual physical education games. Everything he had worked for in terms of earning respect and finding his place at Lincoln High might depend on how he performed in those crucial moments. The note in his locker that morning felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by the possibilities that lay ahead. Marcus was beginning to understand that at Lincoln High, as in life, people would try to define you by their first impressions and assumptions. The key was proving them wrong through actions rather than words, one opportunity at a time. The gymnasium at Lincoln High felt different at 6 in the morning. Empty bleachers cast long shadows across the polished floor, and the only sounds were the squeaking of sneakers and the rhythmic bounce of basketballs. Marcus arrived 15 minutes early, wanting to get a feel for the space before the other players showed up. His heart pounded as he took practice shots, knowing this morning would determine whether his dreams of joining the team had any chance of becoming reality. Coach Thompson emerged from his office carrying a clipboard and wearing the serious expression that all the players had learned to respect. "Good. You're here early. That's what I like to see." He handed Marcus a practice jersey. "Don't worry about returning it today. Let's see what you can do with the real players." One by one, the varsity team members filed into the gymnasium. Derek Morrison arrived with his usual confidence, greeting teammates and joking around until he noticed Marcus stretching near the free throw line. The easy smile on Derek's face shifted to something more guarded, though he nodded politely in Marcus's direction. "Listen up," Coach Thompson called out, his voice echoing in the large space. "We're going to run some scrimmages this morning. Williams here is trying out for a spot on the team. I want everyone to play their best basketball and help me evaluate what he can contribute." The first drill was a simple ball handling exercise, followed by shooting practice from various spots on the court. Marcus held his own during these individual skills assessments, though he noticed several players watching him more closely than they normally watched each other. The real test would come during the scrimmage games, where basketball IQ and the ability to work with teammates mattered more than individual talent. When Coach Thompson divided the players into 2 teams for the first scrimmage, Marcus found himself grouped with several second-string players against Derek's starting lineup. The matchup seemed deliberately designed to test how Marcus would perform when facing the team's best talent. As they huddled before the game began, his temporary teammates offered encouragement mixed with realistic warnings. "These guys have been playing together for 2 years, whispered Tony Martinez, a junior who usually came off the bench. "They know each other's moves better than they know their own families. Don't try to do everything yourself." The advice proved valuable when the scrimmage began. Derek's team moved the ball with practiced precision, running plays that had clearly been rehearsed hundreds of times. They built an early lead while Marcus and his teammates struggled to establish any rhythm. However, Marcus quickly began reading the patterns in their offensive sets, anticipating where passes would go and positioning himself to disrupt their timing. Midway through the first half of the scrimmage, Marcus intercepted a pass intended for Derek and immediately pushed the ball up court. Instead of trying to score himself, he found Tony Martinez open in the corner for an easy 3-pointer. The shot swished through the net, and Tony raised his fist in celebration while giving Marcus an appreciative nod. "Good vision," Coach Thompson called out from the sideline. "Keep moving the ball." As the scrimmage continued, Marcus began to impact the game in multiple ways. His defensive intensity forced several turnovers, and his passing created scoring opportunities for teammates who weren't used to getting such good looks at the basket. More importantly, his energy seemed to lift the entire second team, giving them confidence to compete against players they usually deferred to during practice. Derek Morrison was clearly an excellent player, with smooth moves to the basket and reliable shooting from mid-range. However, Marcus noticed that Derek was accustomed to being the primary focus of the defense and seemed slightly uncomfortable when Marcus's help defense forced him into more difficult shots. During one possession, Marcus stripped the ball from Derek cleanly, drawing surprised reactions from the other players. "Nice steal," Derek said, jogging back on defense. There was genuine respect in his voice, though Marcus could tell the team captain was still evaluating this new challenger to the established order. The first scrimmage ended with Derek's team winning by 6 points, but the margin had been much closer than anyone expected. Coach Thompson made notes on his clipboard while the players caught their breath and prepared for the second game. This time, he mixed up the teams differently, putting Marcus with some starters against a combination of regulars and reserves. "Let's see how you handle running the offense," Coach Thompson told Marcus as they set up for the second scrimmage. "Johnson, you play the 2 today. Williams, you're at point guard." Playing point guard meant Marcus would be responsible for bringing the ball up court and initiating the team's offensive sets. It was a position that required both skill and leadership, and Marcus felt the weight of everyone's attention as he dribbled across half court for the first time as the team's floor general. The Lincoln High offense was more complex than what Marcus had run at his previous schools, with multiple screens and cutting patterns designed to create open shots. During the first few possessions, he made some mistakes, throwing passes to spots where receivers weren't expecting them. However, he adjusted quickly, and soon the offense was flowing more smoothly. What impressed his teammates most was Marcus's basketball intelligence. He seemed to understand not just what each player could do, but what they preferred to do, and when they were most comfortable receiving the ball. When the team's best shooter, Kevin Walsh, was having trouble getting open looks, Marcus found creative ways to get him the ball in scoring position. "That kid can play," Marcus heard one of the seniors say during a water break. "He makes everybody else better." The second scrimmage was closer throughout, with both teams trading baskets and momentum shifts. Marcus's team took a small lead into the final minutes largely because of his ability to control the pace and make smart decisions with the ball. When Derek's team made a final push to try to win, Marcus responded by hitting 2 clutch shots and setting up a teammate for the game-winning basket. As the scrimmage ended, Coach Thompson called everyone together at center court. "Good work. This morning, Williams, stick around after everyone else leaves. I want to discuss a few things with you." The other players filed out of the gymnasium, most offering encouraging words to Marcus as they passed. Derek was among the last to leave, pausing to extend his hand for a congratulatory shake. "You can really play," he said simply. "Hope you decide to join us." When Coach Thompson and Marcus were alone in the gymnasium, the coach's demeanor became more personal and direct. "I'm going to be honest with you, son. You've got the talent to help this team, and your basketball IQ is as good as anyone I've coached. The question is whether you're ready for everything that comes with being on the varsity team." Marcus listened intently as Coach Thompson explained the time commitments, academic requirements, and social dynamics that came with playing high school basketball. "This team has a chance to compete for the district championship this year. That means pressure, attention, and expectations. Some of your teammates have been working toward this goal since they were freshmen. Are you prepared to earn their trust and contribute to something bigger than yourself?" The conversation continued for another 20 minutes, covering everything, from Marcus's academic performance to his family's ability to handle the financial responsibilities of team membership. Coach Thompson asked direct questions about Marcus's previous basketball experience and his long-term goals, both athletic and academic. "I want this opportunity more than anything," Marcus said finally. "I understand that I'll have to prove myself every day, not just in practice but in games and in the classroom. I'm ready for that challenge." Coach Thompson smiled for the first time that morning. "Practice starts at 3:30 this afternoon. Welcome to the team, Williams. Don't make me regret this decision." Word spread quickly through Lincoln High that the new student had made the varsity basketball team. By lunchtime, Marcus found himself receiving curious glances from students who had barely acknowledged his existence just days before. The news created ripples throughout the school's social ecosystem, forcing people to reconsider their assumptions about the quiet kid from the military base. Sarah Chen congratulated him during chemistry class, genuinely excited about his achievement. "This is so cool, Marcus. I'll definitely come to some games this season. When do you play your first game?" Coach Thompson said our first home game is next Friday against Roosevelt High, Marcus replied, still somewhat amazed that he was actually discussing his upcoming basketball schedule. "I'm not sure how much playing time I'll get, but at least I'll be on the team." James Peterson was equally supportive when they met in the library during study hall. "My dad coaches youth basketball, and he always says that making varsity is A transfer student is almost impossible. Most coaches stick with players they've developed for years. However, not everyone was pleased with Marcus's success. During his afternoon classes, he overheard several conversations that made it clear some students resented his rapid rise from social outsider to team member. A few comments were particularly cutting, suggesting that he had only made the team because Coach Thompson felt sorry for him or because the school needed to fill a roster spot. The real test came during his first official practice that afternoon. The atmosphere was more intense than the morning tryout session, with players pushing each other harder and Coach Thompson demanding precision in every drill. Marcus quickly learned that earning a spot on the team was only the beginning of proving himself worthy of his teammates' respect. Derek Morrison had clearly accepted Marcus's presence on the team, but their relationship remained professional rather than friendly. During passing drills, Derek made sure to test Marcus with difficult throws and quick releases. When Marcus handled the challenges smoothly, Derek nodded approvingly but didn't offer verbal praise. "New guys always have to earn their stripes," explained Tony Martinez after practice. "Derek's not being mean, he's just making sure you're serious about this. Last year we had a transfer student who made the team but quit after 2 weeks because he couldn't handle the pressure." The physical demands of varsity basketball practice were significantly greater than anything Marcus had experienced at his previous schools. Coach Thompson ran conditioning drills that left players exhausted, followed by complex offensive and defensive sets that required constant mental focus. By the end of practice, Marcus's jersey was soaked with sweat, but he felt energized rather than depleted. "Good first day," Kevin Walsh told him as they headed toward the locker room. Kevin was the team's leading scorer and generally considered one of the most talented players in the district. His approval carried significant weight with the other teammates. "You pick up the plays quickly, that's going to help you get on the court." The conversation in the locker room revealed the team's goals and expectations for the season. Lincoln High hadn't won a district championship in basketball for over a decade, but this year's team had the talent and experience to compete with anyone in their region. Several seniors had been playing together since middle school, creating a chemistry that would be difficult for opposing teams to match. "We've got a real chance this year," said Mike Chen, Sarah's older brother and the team's starting center, "but only if everyone buys into the system and plays their role. No individuals, no egos, just basketball." Marcus understood that the comment was partially directed at him. As the newest team member, he would need to prove that he could contribute without disrupting the established team dynamics. The challenge was finding ways to use his abilities while respecting the roles that other players had earned over multiple seasons. Walking home after practice, Marcus reflected on how dramatically his situation had changed in just a few weeks. The students who had dismissed him as a charity case were now forced to acknowledge his athletic abilities. Teachers who had initially seen him as just another military kid were recognizing his academic potential. The transformation wasn't complete, but the foundation for respect was beginning to develop. However, Marcus also understood that joining the basketball team had raised the stakes considerably. His performance would now be visible to the entire school community, not just his classmates and teachers. Success on the basketball court could elevate his social status significantly, but failure would be equally public and potentially damaging to his reputation. That evening, his father asked detailed questions about the tryout and first practice. Sergeant Williams had played basketball in high school and understood both the opportunities and pressures that came with team sports. "Remember, son, your teammates are going to watch how you handle success and adversity. Show them the same character your mother and I raised you to have." The next few days established a routine that would define Marcus's life for the remainder of the school year. Morning classes were followed by lunch with James Peterson, who had become his closest friend at Lincoln High. Afternoons were devoted to basketball practice, which typically lasted until 6 o'clock and left little time for anything other than homework and sleep. During practice, Marcus gradually earned more repetitions with the first team, though he remained behind Derek Morrison and the established starters in the rotation. Coach Thompson used him primarily as a defensive specialist and backup point guard, roles that allowed him to impact games without threatening the positions of senior players. "You're learning the system well," Coach Thompson told him after a particularly good practice session. "Keep working on your outside shot and you'll see more playing time as the season progresses. The comment about his outside shooting was accurate. Marcus was an excellent ball handler and passer, with good defensive instincts and court awareness. However, his jump shot was inconsistent, especially from three-point range. He began staying after practice to work on shooting drills, often with assistance from Kevin Walsh, who had developed into something of a mentor. Shooting is mostly confidence and repetition, Kevin explained as they worked through various shooting exercises. You've got good form, but you're thinking too much instead of just letting it flow. By the end of his first week of practice, Marcus had clearly established himself as a valuable team member. His work ethic impressed coaches and teammates, and his basketball intelligence allowed him to contribute even when his shots weren't falling. More importantly, he had begun to develop genuine friendships with several players, breaking down the social barriers that had initially separated him from his classmates. The approaching first game against Roosevelt High represented both an opportunity and a test. Marcus knew he probably wouldn't see significant playing time, but being on the bench in uniform would mark his official acceptance into Lincoln High's basketball program. For a student who had arrived just a month earlier as a complete outsider, the transformation was remarkable. However, Marcus also understood that the real challenges lay ahead. Making the team was only the first step in proving that he belonged at Lincoln High. The games would be more intense than practice, with larger crowds and greater pressure. His teammates would be watching to see how he handled success and whether he could contribute when it mattered most. As Marcus prepared for bed the night before his first game, he thought about the journey that had brought him to this moment. The cruel notes in his locker and whispered comments about his appearance seemed like memories from another lifetime. Tomorrow night, he would put on a Lincoln High basketball uniform and sit on the bench with teammates who had accepted him as an equal. The transformation wasn't complete, and Marcus knew he still had much to prove both on and off the basketball court. But for the first time since arriving at his new school, he felt like he truly belonged somewhere and had earned the respect of people whose opinions mattered to him. The Lincoln High gymnasium buzzed with energy on the night of the season opener against Roosevelt High. Marcus had never seen the building so alive, with packed bleachers stretching from floor to ceiling and students wearing school colors while chanting fight songs. The atmosphere was electric in a way that made his previous basketball experiences seem small by comparison. In the locker room before the game, Coach Thompson delivered his pre-game speech with an intensity that commanded complete attention from every player. Gentlemen, this is what we've been working towards since August. Roosevelt thinks they can come into our house and push us around, but they're about to learn differently. Play smart, play together, and trust your preparation. Marcus felt his heart racing as he put on his Lincoln High uniform for the first time in an actual game situation. The jersey felt heavier somehow, weighted with the expectations and traditions of everyone who had worn it before him. Around the locker room, his teammates were going through their individual pre-game rituals, some listening to music while others sat in focused silence. "You ready for this, rookie?" Derek Morrison asked, using the nickname that had become standard among the team members. Despite the casual tone, Marcus could hear genuine concern in Derek's voice. The team captain had taken it upon himself to help Marcus adjust to the pressures of varsity basketball. "As ready as I can be," Marcus replied honestly. "I know I probably won't play much tonight, but I want to be prepared if coach needs me." Derek nodded approvingly. "That's the right attitude. Keep your head in the game even when you're on the bench. You never know when your number might get called." The team emerged from the locker room to thunderous applause from the home crowd. Marcus had experienced crowd noise before, but nothing quite like this. The student section was particularly loud, with creative chants and signs that showed impressive organization and enthusiasm. As he scanned the bleachers during warm-ups, Marcus spotted James Peterson and Sarah Chen sitting with a group of their friends, all wearing Lincoln High shirts in support of the team. Roosevelt High brought their own impressive squad, led by a senior point guard who had already committed to play college basketball at a Division I school. During the opposing team's warm-ups, Marcus studied their movements and tendencies, noting which players seemed most comfortable handling the ball and which ones preferred to work in the post. "They're big and athletic," Kevin Walsh observed as they watched Roosevelt's layup lines. "But they look like they want to run everything through their star player. If we can make him work on defense, it might affect his offense. Coach Thompson had prepared detailed scouting reports on Roosevelt's key players, and the game plan was clear. Lincoln High would use their depth and team chemistry to wear down the visitors while limiting easy scoring opportunities for Roosevelt's best players. The strategy required disciplined execution and smart decision-making from every player who entered the game. When the starting lineups were announced, Marcus felt a surge of pride hearing his teammates' names called over the public address system. Each starter jogged to center court amid loud cheers, slapping hands with coaches and teammates before taking their positions for the opening tip. Marcus and the other reserves stood along the bench ready to support their teammates and contribute whenever they were needed. The game began with both teams feeling each other out, trading baskets and testing different defensive approaches. Derek Morrison controlled the pace for Lincoln High, using his experience and court vision to find good shots for his teammates. Roosevelt's strategy was immediately apparent, as they looked to isolate their star player in one-on-one situations whenever possible. Midway through the first quarter, Lincoln High had established a small lead through balanced scoring and aggressive defense. Coach Thompson used his first timeout to make adjustments, emphasizing the need to continue moving the ball and avoiding the temptation to match Roosevelt's individual play style. "They want to make this a playground game," Coach Thompson told his players during the huddle. "We win by playing team basketball and making them work for every shot." The second quarter saw Roosevelt make a strong push, using their athleticism to create turnovers and easy scoring opportunities. Their star, point guard, was beginning to find his rhythm, hitting difficult shots and making impressive passes to teammates. Lincoln High's lead evaporated, and they found themselves trailing by 6 points with 3 minutes left in the first half. During another timeout, Marcus noticed that Derek Morrison was breathing heavily and seemed frustrated by Roosevelt's defensive pressure. The pace of the game was faster than Lincoln High preferred, and several of their key players were accumulating foul trouble. Coach Thompson was clearly considering his options, looking down the bench at his available substitutes. "Williams, start warming up," Coach Thompson said suddenly. "If we need a spark, I might put you in to handle their pressure." Marcus felt a jolt of adrenaline as he began stretching and loosening up along the sideline. The possibility of entering his first varsity game earlier than expected was both thrilling and terrifying. He had prepared for this moment in practice, but the reality of performing in front of hundreds of people was something entirely different. With 1 minute left in the second quarter, Derek picked up his third foul while trying to defend Roosevelt's star player. Coach Thompson called an immediate timeout, and Marcus saw him looking in his direction with a determined expression. "Williams, you're in," Coach Thompson said firmly. "Handle their pressure, find open teammates, and don't try to do too much. Just run the offense and trust your instincts." Walking onto the court for the first time as a Lincoln High player was surreal. The crowd noise seemed to intensify as Marcus jogged to the scorer's table to check in, and he could hear individual voices calling out encouragement from the student section. His heart pounded as he waited for the next dead ball to enter the game. When the referee's whistle blew, Marcus ran onto the court and immediately felt the pace and intensity that separated varsity basketball from everything he had experienced before. Roosevelt's players were bigger and faster than they had appeared from the bench, and their defensive pressure was relentless from the moment Lincoln High crossed half court. On his first possession, Marcus brought the ball up court against Roosevelt's aggressive full-court press. Their defenders tried to trap him near the sideline, but he stayed calm and found Kevin Walsh with a crisp pass that broke the pressure. Kevin immediately looked for his shot and connected on a three-pointer that brought the home crowd to its feet. "Good job, rookie," Kevin called out as they ran back on defense. "Keep finding the open man." Roosevelt responded by attacking Marcus defensively, clearly wanting to test the new player's composure under pressure. Their star point guard tried to post him up, using his size advantage to create a mismatch. However, Marcus had faced similar challenges during practice against bigger teammates, and he used his quickness and positioning to force a difficult shot that missed badly. With 30 seconds left in the first half, Lincoln High had cut Roosevelt's lead to 2 points. Coach Thompson called their final timeout to set up a play for the last shot. In the huddle, Marcus listened intently as the coach drew up a screen, and roll action designed to create an open look for their best shooter. "Williams, you'll initiate the play," Coach Thompson said, looking directly at Marcus. "Read the defense and make the right decision. If they switch, find Walsh coming off the screen. If they show hard, Kevin will be open on the backside." The pressure of running the final play of the half in his first varsity game was enormous, but Marcus felt ready for the challenge. When play resumed, he dribbled deliberately toward the top of the key, waiting for Kevin to set the screen. Roosevelt's defense showed hard on the screen, exactly as Coach Thompson had predicted. Marcus made a quick pass to Mike Chen, rolling to the basket, who caught the ball and scored an easy layup as time expired. The gymnasium erupted as Lincoln High headed to the locker room tied at 32 points each. Marcus's teammates mobbed him as they walked off the court, clearly excited about his immediate impact on the game. "Outstanding decision-making out there," Coach Thompson told Marcus as they gathered in the locker room. "You didn't force anything, just let the game come to you. That's exactly what we need." The halftime speech focused on maintaining their momentum while continuing to execute the game plan that had brought them back from their early deficit. Coach Thompson made it clear that Marcus would continue to see playing time in the second half, recognizing how his presence had changed the team's energy and effectiveness. "Roosevelt is going to come out aggressive in the third quarter," the coach warned. "They're used to wearing teams down with their athleticism. We need to match their intensity and make them work on both ends of the court." The second half began with both teams trading baskets in what had become a physical, competitive game. Marcus started the third quarter on the bench, watching as Derek Morrison returned to action with his foul trouble under control. However, Roosevelt continued to pressure Lincoln High's ball handlers, forcing several turnovers that led to easy scoring opportunities. Midway through the third quarter, Coach Thompson made another strategic substitution, putting Marcus back in the game to help handle Roosevelt's defensive pressure. This time, Marcus felt more comfortable with the pace and physicality, having adjusted to the speed of varsity basketball during his first stint on the court. His second appearance proved even more impactful than his first. Marcus consistently broke Roosevelt's pressure with smart passing and patient ball movement, creating good shots for his teammates while avoiding the turnovers that had plagued Lincoln High earlier in the game. More importantly, his energy and enthusiasm seemed to lift the entire team. With 5 minutes left in the game, Lincoln High had built their largest lead of the night at 8 points. The home crowd was on its feet continuously, sensing that their team was on the verge of an impressive season-opening victory. Marcus had contributed 6 assists and 2 steals while committing no turnovers, earning praise from teammates and coaches alike. Roosevelt made one final push in the closing minutes, cutting the lead to 3 points with under 2 minutes to play. Coach Thompson called a timeout to settle his team and make sure they executed properly during the crucial final possessions. In the huddle, he looked at Marcus with complete confidence. "You're staying in to finish this game," Coach Thompson said. "Keep doing what you've been doing, and trust your teammates to make plays." The final 2 minutes tested every aspect of Marcus's basketball skills and mental toughness. Roosevelt's defenders fouled aggressively, trying to stop the clock and create scoring opportunities. Marcus made 3 of 4 free throws down the stretch, including 2 clutch shots with 30 seconds remaining that essentially sealed the victory. When the final buzzer sounded, Lincoln High had won by 7 points in a game that showcased both their talent and their chemistry as a team. Marcus found himself surrounded by teammates who were genuinely excited about his contribution to their season-opening success. Even Derek Morrison, who had initially been cautious about accepting the new player, offered enthusiastic congratulations. "You played like you've been with us for years," Derek said, extending his hand for a congratulatory shake. "Coach made the right call putting you in when we needed a spark." Walking off the court after his first varsity victory, Marcus felt a profound sense of accomplishment and belonging. The student who had arrived at Lincoln High just 6 weeks earlier as a complete outsider had not only made the basketball team, but had played a crucial role in their season opener. The transformation was remarkable, but Marcus understood that this was just the beginning of proving himself worthy of his teammates' trust and respect. The victory over Roosevelt High marked the beginning of a remarkable transformation for both Marcus and the Lincoln High basketball team. Word of the new player's impressive debut spread quickly through the school and community, changing how people viewed the quiet student who had arrived just 2 months earlier. However, Marcus understood that one good game was only the foundation for earning lasting respect and acceptance. In the days following the season opener, Marcus noticed subtle but significant changes in how his classmates interacted with him. Students who had previously ignored him now offered congratulations in the hallways, and some who had made cruel comments about his appearance seemed embarrassed by their earlier behavior. The social dynamics that had seemed so rigid when he first arrived were proving more flexible than he had initially believed. "You're becoming famous around here," James Peterson observed during their usual lunch conversation. "I heard some seniors talking about you in my AP history class. They were saying Coach Thompson might have found the missing piece for a championship run." The attention was flattering but also brought new pressures that Marcus hadn't anticipated. Teachers began expecting more from him academically, assuming that his athletic success indicated untapped potential in the classroom. Some classmates sought his friendship primarily because of his basketball achievements, making it difficult to distinguish genuine relationships from opportunistic ones. Basketball practice took on increased intensity as Coach Thompson began incorporating Marcus more fully into the team's offensive and defensive systems. The coaching staff had been impressed not just by his performance against Roosevelt, but by his basketball intelligence and leadership qualities. During scrimmages, Marcus often found himself running plays with the first team, though his official role remained that of sixth man. "Your court vision is exceptional for someone your age," assistant coach Davis told him after a particularly good practice session. "You see developing plays 2 or 3 passes ahead of most players. That's a gift that can't be taught." Derek Morrison had fully embraced Marcus as a teammate and was actively helping him understand the nuances of Lincoln High's basketball culture. The team captain explained which teachers supported the basketball program, how to balance academic and athletic responsibilities, and what was expected of team members in terms of community involvement and behavior. "Being on this team means you represent more than just yourself," Derek explained as they worked on shooting drills after practice. "The whole school watches how we handle success and adversity. People remember basketball players long after they graduate, so everything you do matters." The lessons extended beyond basketball fundamentals to life skills that would serve Marcus well beyond high school. Coach Thompson regularly discussed time management, goal setting, and the importance of maintaining academic standards while pursuing athletic excellence. The program demanded discipline in all areas of life, not just on the basketball court. Lincoln High's second game was against their crosstown rival Central High School, in what promised to be the most challenging test of the young season. Central had won the district championship the previous year and returned most of their key players, including a dominant center who had already received scholarship offers from several major colleges. During the week of preparation, Coach Thompson increased Marcus's role in the game plan, trusting him to handle more responsibilities against their toughest opponent. The coaching staff had identified specific situations where Marcus's skills could neutralize Central's advantages, particularly his ability to create scoring opportunities for teammates through penetration and passing. "This is the kind of game that defines seasons," Coach Thompson told the team during their final practice before the Central game. "They think they can intimidate us because of their reputation, but we've got something they don't expect. We've got depth, chemistry, and players who are willing to sacrifice individual glory for team success." The night of the Central game, the Lincoln High Gymnasium was packed beyond capacity, with fans standing along the walls and in the aisles. The atmosphere was charged with an electricity that made the Roosevelt game seem quiet by comparison. Marcus had never played in front of such a large or emotionally invested crowd, but he felt ready for the challenge. Central High arrived with their own contingent of supporters, creating a divided gymnasium that buzzed with anticipation. During warm-ups, Marcus could feel the intensity radiating from the opposing players, who carried themselves with the confidence of defending champions. Their star center was particularly imposing, standing 6 feet 8 inches tall, with the kind of physical presence that could dominate games. "Stay aggressive, but stay smart," Derek Morrison advised Marcus as they prepared for the opening tip. "They're going to try to speed us up and get us out of our rhythm. trust the system, and trust your teammates. The game began with Central establishing their physical superiority, using their size advantage to control the boards and score easy baskets in the paint. Lincoln High found themselves trailing by 10 points midway through the first quarter, struggling to match their opponent's intensity and execution. Coach Thompson called an early timeout to refocus his team and make strategic adjustments. "They're not doing anything we haven't seen before," he told his players firmly. "We're playing tentative instead of playing our game. Move the ball, find good shots, and make them work on defense." Marcus entered the game with 5 minutes left in the first quarter, tasked with providing energy and ball movement against Central's aggressive defense. His first possession resulted in a turnover when Central's defenders trapped him near the sideline, but he quickly adjusted to their pressure and began finding ways to attack their defensive schemes. The turning point came in the second quarter, when Marcus initiated a fast break that led to a three-pointer by Kevin Walsh, followed immediately by a steal that he converted into an easy layup. The quick 4-point swing energized the home crowd and seemed to shift momentum in Lincoln High's favor. "That's what we need," Coach Thompson shouted from the sideline. "Pressure them back and make them uncomfortable." By halftime, Lincoln High had erased Central's early lead and held a 3-point advantage. Marcus had contributed 8 points and 5 assists while committing only 1 turnover, effectively neutralizing Central's defensive pressure. More importantly, his energy and leadership had lifted the entire team's performance. The second half became a back-and-forth battle between two evenly matched teams, with neither able to establish a decisive advantage. Central's experience showed in crucial moments as they executed their plays with precision and made fewer mental mistakes than their younger opponents. However, Lincoln High matched their intensity and refused to be intimidated by Central's reputation. With 3 minutes remaining in the game, the score was tied at 68 points each. Coach Thompson had kept Marcus on the court for most of the second half, trusting him to make smart decisions during the game's most crucial possessions. The pressure was enormous, but Marcus felt calm and focused, drawing on all his preparation and experience. The decisive moment came when Central's star center picked up his 5th foul while trying to defend Mike Chen in the post. With their best player on the bench, Central's defense became more vulnerable to the kind of penetration and ball movement that Marcus excelled at creating. In the final minute, Marcus made 2 crucial plays that sealed Lincoln High's victory. First, he drove to the basket and drew a foul, making both free throws to give his team a 4-point lead. Then on Central's final possession, he intercepted a pass and ran out the clock, ensuring that Lincoln High would complete their upset of the defending district champions. The celebration that followed was unlike anything Marcus had experienced in his young life. Students stormed the court, teammates embraced him with genuine emotion, and the entire gymnasium erupted in sustained cheering that lasted several minutes. For a young man who had felt like an outsider just months earlier, the moment represented complete acceptance and belonging. As Marcus walked off the court after the biggest victory of his basketball career, he reflected on the journey that had brought him to this point. The cruel notes in his locker, the whispered comments about his secondhand clothes, and the assumption that he would never amount to anything at Lincoln High all seemed like distant memories from another lifetime. Coach Thompson found him in the locker room celebration and pulled him aside for a private conversation. "You've exceeded every expectation I had when I invited you to try out," the coach said with genuine pride. "But more than that, you've shown the kind of character and leadership that championship teams are built around." The victory over Central High established Lincoln High as a legitimate contender for the district championship and transformed Marcus from a promising newcomer into a recognized star. However, the most important transformation was internal. Marcus had discovered that respect and belonging couldn't be given or taken away by others. They had to be earned through consistent effort, authentic character, and the courage to persist in the face of adversity. Walking home that night, still wearing his grass-stained uniform and carrying the game ball that his teammates had given him, Marcus understood that he had found something more valuable than basketball success. He had found a place where his contributions mattered, People who valued his character over his possessions and the confidence that comes from proving yourself through actions rather than words. The student who had once been seen only as a target had revealed the strength of a true champion. Not just in basketball, but in the more important game of earning genuine respect and lasting friendships through perseverance, integrity, and the willingness to never give up on himself or others.